I think to work with a machine company as a surgeon, it's not only about, the machine itself where we will be talking about, it's about the people and the support and the philosophy. And I think, and we just talked about it, Oertli, during the last years that I've been like cooperating client, has developed from not a small Swiss company, but to a well-respected giant internationally. And this is because of the people that work there and supported us, especially during Corona. So thank you very much, and please continue. But you were not, or you're not listening because, Oertli hired me to, tell you how good they are. Maybe you're all already customers of Oertli, or maybe you're thinking about it. And my goal is to show you one main argument why the machines of Oertli make the difference. Briefly about us, Alexander already described us. I lead a group of 12 ophthalmologists. We have the main focus of ocular surgery, but also do general ophthalmology. That's how the business is in Germany. And we have 2 OR settings with our own OR where we perform cataracts, let's say macular puckers, macular hole vitrectomy. So more or less, well predictable vitrectomy cases. Mix and refractive surgery is also in our spectrum. And then we also have a really respected facility, the Herzog Karl Theodor Eye Hospital in Munich, the oldest and latest renovated hospital where we can basically provide the whole spectrum of inpatient surgery. And from the machines in the outpatient own OR, I'm operating primarily with a Pharos, also have the cataracts, and in the main hospital we have our OS4. So briefly, my development. I've been performing surgeries in the eye since 2007, which is quite a time now, and I started at the posterior segment, and my journey is from behind to the anterior part. And in Frankfurt, where I also did my training, this is a pure Alcon clinic. It used to be, so I started off with Accurus and the first Constellations, great experiences as well. Then I briefly went for 2 years to the US, where we partnered up with Bausch & Lomb, so I know the Stellaris in and out as well. And since, and then in Heidelberg, I came back to Alcon when it comes to machines, and also have, I think, a good idea about the Goiter S4. And if you look at these machines, all are pure Venturi machines, or used to be. So I was used for my cases that if I, push the pedal, something happens, and that fast. So the aim again is to show you the SPEEP mode of Oertli, which is a combination of a Venturi and a peristaltic pump. And please, if you have any further questions regarding the, techniques, please, there are numerous Oertli experts here. I don't want to go into that theoretical thing. But my idea is what is different for me as an old Venturi user to now as a pure SPEEP user. And what is my touch on surgery? And I think this applies both to cataracts. We're at the anterior segment meeting, but I was asked to touch on the posterior segment. In this case, this is the start of a vitrectomy. You have a young formed vitreous. All you want to have when you start with a cold vitrectomy is that something happens. And this is basically a pure Venturi setup where, cutting rate and aspiration have to be matched with an active infusion, and then something happens. The Oertli machines give a really nice acoustic feedback. So whenever you have some formed vitreous, also in the cataract setup, you always get a higher beep tone because you have an occlusion. This is what I really like about the machine when it comes to the acoustic feedback. Unfortunately, we cannot provide that noise here, but the SPEEP mode, and this is my main goal, is really a really good balance of effectivity and safety. So effectivity is I put my probe in the central vitreous. You see here another case where we have a dense, let's say, floater, and I just start straight off with a vitrectomy and something happens. But I have a high degree of safety. As you can see here, we have a sectorial detachment. There is the hole, and I can, under good control, remove efficiently the vitreous without detaching the retina even more. But also with the SPEEP settings, if you set it, you can have more Venturi power because you would like and need it. I was also saying that I like that in the anterior segment. As we are at the ESCRS, I want to just tell you that with SPEEP, in contrast to my Venturi times, it took me a while to really get the sweet spot when I'm aspirating formed material like the epinucleus or the nucleus. But now, if I, would look back and say, hey, what do I like more? The thing that suddenly happens, and with Venturi, unfortunately, I was too optimistic and I got through a formed material, or do I rather want to have a SPEEP mode where I slowly get to the formed material and then gut it and have a good acoustic noise? I would not like to go back. So I especially admire that aspect in special situations with weak sonulars, where you really, you love your machine, you love your modes. And this is what SPEEP allows you. You're not 0 or 1 with Venturi. I'm exaggerating, okay? But with SPEEP, you get more feeling, you get more touch in both the phaco and in the vitrectomy. In the vitrectomy setups and cases, it especially plays into account when we talk about peripheral vitrectomy, where when you approach a dense core, a dense base of the vitreous, you want to have control over the retina, that you don't induce more tears, create more traction. I will show you some examples. But on the other hand, you have your time and you want to be effective as well. And what always is a good example for a vitrectomy is the induction of a PVD. So the goal is here to induce a posterior vitreous detachment. And you can see here that in that setup, I'm moving to that side, you see that the machine is on the SPEEP mode. I also would like to change to the Venturi. I never go to peristaltic, but with the SPEEP mode and with this setups, I'm here on 550 aspiration, I get a really nice controlled detachment of the posterior vitreous in this really firmly attached vitreous. I don't know if the light allows it, but now you can see here on the posterior part of the vitreous, here you see the induction of the posterior hyaloid. And this is something where you see the experienced and not beginner surgeon. But again, symbiosis of machine and surgeon. This is pretty straightforward. After a macular case where I removed a pucker, there were remnants of ILM and epiretinal tissue in the vitreous, and now I want to go for a fluid-air exchange. So in that case, you either take a fluid and tell your nurse to go to air, or you use your cutter, because then you also can remove the remnants. Just wanted to show you that this also, is no big deal. It's a little aspect. You see here on the right side the relevant parameters. And again, I'm using the SPEEP mode here, where maybe in older days I'd like to have the Venturi and just push the pedal and I have a dried out vitreous cavity. But I was telling you, these aspects of core vitrectomy and fluid air exchange, this is basis. This is nothing basics. This is nothing, where the interesting parts happen. The interesting parts happen if you have pathology in the mid-periphery or in the periphery, and you want to be precise, like in this example, where you can see here the vitreous space and you do a shaving and you have a good mix of effectivity and safety. You know, it's not a Porsche, but it's a SUV hybrid. You know, you change to electricity or you go with fuel, but you're in control. This was also a peripheral vitrectomy next to a retinal tear. So this is the case where I did the core vitrectomy before. The retinal hole is here. So we removed the core vitreous and now we approach the periphery, and we don't want to detach more, but we also don't want to cut in a retinal tear, right? We don't want to have bleedings, otherwise we have to stop the bleeding. And what I can show you here, we have here myopic degenerations. In the next video we will touch on that. And here nothing moved, so nothing, you know, moved more to the posterior part. You can see here the hole, see the detached retina, and it's a calm situation, you know. And again, the acoustic noise helps you here also to understand how efficient you are cutting into a vitreous and how much of the aspiration you're doing. Here you can see the setup in our hospital. I'm operating here on the Ingenuity device 3D, and you can see subsequently where I'm approaching then the lattice degenerations in that part. And what you can see is that nothing happens, and that is what you want. You know? You want to remove enough vitreous efficiently, and then you don't want to induce more holes or tears. So I'll be moving to the left slowly. Sorry. I don't know if you can see it, but you know, 3D only works when you have the glasses on. So if someone films you in the OR, you always get the non-3D view, you get the 2D view. That's why there's a blurry image. Don't think that I'm, as a surgeon, don't see exactly what I'm doing. But now you can see I mixed up the videos. Now you can see how I'm approaching the degeneration, the lattice degenerations. Indenting on the left part. And now we will switch. And you can see here again, hopefully formed vitreous. And now we move to the other mode where you can see that nothing of the retina is harmed in that step of the surgery. Here. Here's a degeneration. There's the hole. And I need to indent here. And here you have, let's say, preformed holes, degenerations. There's also, I'm sorry, it's too light here, but there are some point bleedings around. You see here the degeneration, and efficient vitrectomy without a new hole was performed. I think you have an idea here, yeah? So, the pump is one secret, but in vitrectomy you need a cutting system that allows you to be efficient. And there comes a new parameter, and that is flow. And you only can generate flow if you have an open cutter. And that was one innovation where I'm really happy that Oertli also, you know, made that step, that we have a really efficient continuous flow cutter. This allows us to go peripherally with a good pump, with a speed pump, to go traction free, without fluctuations, with a high cut rate and an open port. Oertli has preclinical videos in case you're interested for that aspect. The last point I want to introduce to you is that Oertli also, with both the Pharos and the OS4, and I believe with the cataracts, are quite innovative when it comes to light. And especially in macular cases, you need to play with contrast. So you need to know where you are. You see here, I'm peeling that pucker without a dye in the first step. And this can only be performed if I'm sure that I'm not too deep and peeling off the retina, of course. So what we did for the purpose also of this presentation, Oertli basically focused on two light spectra, that is blue and yellow. And by moving that, it really easily gives me the idea what I as a surgeon individually like more. You know, that was the idea of that. The other thing is that they had the really smart idea. And again, Alex, thank you very much for giving me these small gadgets to try out and ask me if I like it. That with the light probe, where you usually hold your one hand that you see something in the dark, that they said, hey, why don't we just create for free, just like a, not a condom, but you know what I mean, that you can put on. And for that, during surgery, you have a perfect tool to visualize the periphery. And I'm usually doing this when I leave some dye at the posterior pole to stain the posterior part. And with that, you really have another idea to approach the periphery like an endo-illuminator. So you see, this is the regular way that my nurse, you know, is indenting the vitreous space. But for me, I need to hold the hand and I need to have another instrument there. Or I do it on my own. And in that part, that is again the eye with myopic degenerations, I can really see here differently with different colors what is going on in the periphery. And believe it or not, you really can efficiently see vitreous and approach it. Here you can see I created at that part a small bleeding that I'm then at the end, you know, stopping by just pushing into that point bleed. The video is stopping now, but this is, you know, I'm just stopping the bleeding, nothing there. So to summarize, I just wanted to touch upon the point that I moved away from Venturi, where I did like, let's say 60% of my vitrectomy times. And now it's like 5 to 10% of that time. Mostly for core vitrectomy or something like a floater vitrectomy where I'm in the middle and just want to get quickly in and out, let's say quickly in and out. The SPEEP allows me now for 90 to 95% of the time that I'm staying on the same mode, which I really like a lot. And I hope to have convinced you or to demonstrate to you efficiently why I personally like it a lot in the periphery. Any questions? Oh, thank you for your attention.